Absolute Brainiac has appeared in the background of Absolute Superman, but today we learn his origin story. Welcome to the Comicstorian Complete Story series, where you get audio dramas of your favorite comic books, helping you decide what to go out and add to your collection. Today we continue Absolute Superman with issue number 7 by Jason Aaron. I hope you enjoy. The team of Omega Men drop into the secret facility somewhere in the Nevada desert. They drop down into the shadows, readying their weapons as they synchronize their cortexes with their combat suits. Weapons up, they move through the shadows, shifting past strange technology and purple mist that clings to the floor. No signs of life. Facility appears deserted. The kind of power this place pulls from the grid. They must be hiding something here. Something big. But if it's the server cluster that runs the Brainiac algorithm, there's no way Lazarus would leave this place unguarded, so stay alert. The team leader thinks to the others as they shift forward. But suddenly, there is a burst of energy and one of the agents falls to the ground, struggling in pain as the skin seems to be peeled from his body. What the hell was that? What just happened to Call? One of the agents thinks as they take cover, but a new voice in their head answers. Why, I shrank his skin, of course, the voice tells them. The team leader raises his weapon, prepared to fire. He glances back at his other agents, but they're already falling to the ground. One starts crying out that they can't feel their muscles anymore, while the other's bones have shrank in his body and he is vomiting them up in a pool of viscera. The team leader turns and runs, firing blindly into the shadows. Omega Strike Force to base! Immediate evac needed! Primus, do you copy? The team leader shouts, but his hand suddenly enlarges and the rifle falls to the ground. He topples to the ground from the weight. Shh, now, clear your thoughts. Relax that luscious brain of yours. I'll take it from here, the voice thinks, as Brainiac steps from the shadows, his body held together by machines. And the team leader lets out a scream of fear and pain. Later, the team leader is held together by machines as Brainiac picks at his body, studying his biology. The body shifts and the man struggles to open his mouth, his brain suspended in a jar nearby. I wouldn't advise wiggling in your condition. I tend to tinker when I'm feeling anxious, Brainiac says as he steps forward. He glances back at his monitors and glares at the images of the so-called Superman. He can't work it out, can't figure out where he comes from, how he is able to do what he can. Brainiac roars in anger and frustration and grabs one of the nearby shrunken cities, shaking the glass and demanding the scientists inside to give him the answers he desires. Tell me who he is. Who is Superman? Brainiac bellows, but the tiny scientists don't know.
We know nothing, Almighty Brainiac! Please, please don't!
They shout, but Brainiac whirls and throws the glass onto the ground. He steps on the city with an angry roar. Maggots! Morons! He yells as he begins squashing the beings as if they were bugs. Brainiac breathes deeply and gathers himself before turning back to the shattered tactical agent. My apologies. I'm sorry you had to see that. I'm afraid I can lose my mind a bit when I'm angry, Brainiac says as he reaches up and pokes at his exposed brain tissue, explaining that he's tried to cut free the parts of his brain that lead to anger, but has been unsuccessful so far. He turns back to the surgical table and sits on the ground, admitting that having someone to talk to might help him work through the problem. Brainiac closes his eyes and thinks back to the past. Many years earlier, Brainiac first opened his eyes. He stepped from his pod and looked at another Brainiac that stood before him. You are Brainiac 419,732. You serve the Collective. What is the Collective? Brainiac asks. But the older man waves a hand of dismissal and explains that he is not allowed to seek knowledge beyond his station. He says as he hands Brainiac a shovel. He motions to a furnace and a nearby pile of dead Brainiacs, explaining that Brainiac 419,732's job is to shovel the refuse into the liquidator. Begin shoveling, 419,732. You are already behind schedule, the older Brainiac states before walking out of the room. And so, Brainiac began, shoveling the dead bodies into the liquidator. The bodies never ended. The ceiling would open and a chute would deposit more. It was on day 2844 that Brainiac discovered that someone wasn't dead. A murderous Brainiac tore free of the pile, trying to drive a knife into Brainiac's head. Wait, I serve the Collective. What is your function? I am Brainiac 8,238,759. I stab. I kill. The murderer declares as he prepares to stab again. But Brainiac manages to push him off and grabs his fallen shovel, slamming it hard into the murderer's head and cutting it off. I am Brainiac 419,732. I shovel, he states simply before throwing the body into the liquidator. Day 13,638. Brainiac continues to shovel. His body is ravaged. Cuts and broken limbs expose his blood and brains, but he continues onward. Day 49,901. Brainiac stands ready, but the room is empty. He rests easily on his shovel, but the ceiling does not open. No more refuse is brought into the room. Finally, he walks to the door. The one that the older Brainiac walked out of all those years ago. Hello? Is anyone there? There hasn't been any refuse in a long while. Should I? He begins to call, but there's no answer. Finally, he wedges his shovel into the door and pries it open, revealing an empty corridor. Brainiac moves forward, passing strange technology and small cities trapped in bottles. More Brainiac bodies stored in pods. Finally, Brainiac arrives on the bridge, where he finds the older Brainiac dead. Oh my, are you Brainiac 1? He whispers, but there is no answer. He walks forward to see the lifeless Brainiac slumped in the chair. No, you are more refuse, Brainiac says as he looks up out of the windows and stares at the stars as they pass by. He smiles slowly. I am Brainiac? I am Brainiac! He shouts with joy. That was the day that he was promoted to level 100 Effector, Brainiac 1. The one where he allowed himself the knowledge of the other Brainiacs. And Brainiac admits that he wondered what else was out in the universe, beyond the stars. In the present, Brainiac stands over the Omega agent. I've sometimes paused to consider the possibility that it would have been better for everyone, me included, if I'd stayed in that room with the shovel. But where would the fun in that be? Brainiac tells the man. He leans over him, thanking him for helping him work through his anger. Contact the Brainiac Collective. Brainiac orders his computer as he turns away. The screens switch and light up, revealing the faces of other Brainiacs around the universe. Brainiac uploads the information that he has gathered and requests any and all possible leads related to Superman's identity and/or planet of origin. The other Brainiacs study his reports, but are shocked by what they see, calling the reports idiocy and that no species has the abilities described. One by one, they sign off, until one speaks up. Krypton, a planet in the Rao sector. Your dust sample matches Krypton's thermal signature, the female Brainiac states, informing Brainiac 419,732 that the world was destroyed and there were no survivors. But this Brainiac did recently visit the former site of Krypton, where I retrieved samples of its remains. They display a rather virulent range of radioactivity, now transmitting the sample's elemental composition, the female Brainiac says. She begins to inquire about the identity of the Brainiac that called this meeting, but Brainiac ends the transmission. Brainiac turns back to his machines as they begin to synthesize a piece of Krypton that matches the specifications sent by the other Brainiac. And he smiles as a plan begins to form. I have work to do, he whispers to himself. Later, he stands before a table where his machines are working on Peacemaker Smith. He is an alien, not even of this world. Tell me, Peacemaker Smith, how does that make you feel? Brainiac asks. But Smith merely screams in pain as the machines continue to work. He doesn't understand, questioning why he is being punished. Just kill me already, he begs. But Brainiac steps from the shadows and smiles. Quite the contrary, Peacemaker. Director Al Ghul was very impressed with your work in the field. You're being trusted with a very special deployment to what is soon to be the most dangerous war zone on the planet. A place called Kansas, Brainiac whispers to him. He turns away and stares at the war suit that he has developed and smiles. And that concludes the origin of this absolute Brainiac, and sets us up for the next arc in Jason Aaron's Absolute Superman. Things are getting pretty intense, but I want to know your thoughts on this version of Brainiac in the comments below. And like and subscribe if you haven't already, as it really helps out the channel. And be sure to click that bell icon, as it gets you notifications when new videos go live. I'm Dan with Comicstorian, and we will see you next time. Rest in peace, Benny.